Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Yeah, Arlena, I'm excited.
You are so adorable. Oh my gosh. I don't often get to talk to young people. I usually talk to a bunch of old fogies like myself. So, but I'm like, you know what? I forgot how we got connected. I think Mary, was it Mary that introduced us? Yeah, Mary
Yes.
introduced us. She's from the Sun and Moon podcast, and Mary Tilson. And I was like, oh my gosh, because your whole thing is about prevention and you talk to the kids. And I'm like, everybody that listens to my audience is like a version of me, male or female version of like we're the older demographic and we all have kids that we love and care about. And I don't know that we know how to talk to them. We don't really necessarily know what they care about or how to talk. I have two boys that are just out of there. My boy's going to be, my youngest is going to be 20 tomorrow. So we're, it's like, yeah. But anyway, so you are going to be our translator. You are going to,
There we go. We can
you,
translate. What is Gen Z saying right now?
yeah. What do they need? What are their worries? What do they want? How do we encourage them? What should we not be saying? I need to know all the things. So you're going to help us out. And is this true that you're the founder of Vive 18? It's a preventing substance use. That's your gig?
Yes, exactly. That's what I do full time. Something that kind of started as a college student and has morphed into what it is today. But yeah, traveling around the country, speaking at schools, helping students make friends, have fun, and feel good without using drugs.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I actually didn't know that was possible.
That is what I hear quite a bit. It's
Do you
like, wait, you
really?
could do that?
I mean, that's not how I grew up. So it makes sense that I just assumed that drugs are involved.
Right? It's
So,
it's synonymous with fun, isn't it? Right? You that's what
right?
people can understand, but that's why I think what I'm doing is taking off so fast is because no one else is doing it. I am
Ah,
the one person who stood up and said, "Hey, like being sober is fun. You can find a bunch of friends, and in fact, you can start a movement even like no matter who you are. You could do
yeah.
something amazing, protect your friends in your future, still
Oh
have fun
my
at the same
gosh.
time."
Protect your friends and future. You know what I did when my son was going off to college? I said, you know, when you get older, you're going to go to parties and people are going to get wasted and pass out. My advice to him, I was like, put a hand under the head and make sure they're on their side and the leg on top gets bent so that they don't lay on their back and aspirate and die. Like, that was
I mean,
my
that's
advice.
we can expand on that. I'll help you out, but that's
Okay.
right. That can be helpful if you're in a tough situation. I do teach that at colleges, the bystander intervention type stuff.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that.
But
Remind me.
yeah, for
Remind
sure.
me to talk about that. But let's talk a little bit about how we got here. Why is a young man such as yourself so passionate about this line of work? I know you're not in recovery yourself, so you didn't wrestle with the addiction, but how did addiction touch your life?
Yeah, I would definitely call myself an ally for those in recovery because I saw two paths laid out for me as a young person. The first one, I saw my parents. My mom and dad did not drink, they didn't smoke, they didn't use any drugs. And so my example of what an adult was, it didn't correlate to any type of substance use. And on the alternative, though, they didn't shelter me. Like we talked about it, mostly because this other path that was laid out was the life of some of my family members, specifically one of my uncles. So my mom's brother. And his life was just riddled with complications, failed relationships, going into prison, into hospitals, all because of his relationship with alcohol, eventually drugs, and things like, you know, opioids and stuff like that. I saw it as I have a choice to make. I can follow this path that my parents have modeled for me, and they empower me to do great things. I also have a path modeled where there's kind of this quick high or quick fix or escaping reality, which has led to a lot of traumatic things. things that I don't want to experience and I don't want to perpetuate in the world. And so because I'm very future motivated, I think that's something just like built in me. I look forward to the future. So when I saw those two options, I kind of said, all right, I need to make a decision and I need to protect that decision and learn how to do it well. So that was kind of the scenario that I was brought up with.
Yeah, that's so painful to have a family member who struggles in that way. And did you ever get clarity as to what happened to him that made him, susceptible to drug use in that way?
I don't think that I did. So he was one of those family members where we would see him at holidays, maybe a couple
Mm.
times a year. And so this is my uncle, like the most fun person in the room. He's goofy. He was the youngest sibling too, so like he's the fun uncle. And he seemed to have everything, right? Like he was an engineer, crazy smart guy. Graduated the top of his class, makes six figures a year. Just like role model guy.
Yeah.
And I I do know that he was very consumed with things, with stuff, like had to have the nicest and the newest, and image was really important. And what I've seen just from like, there's no science around what I'm saying right now, but like what I've observed is what when we have this idea that we can achieve happiness through external things, we're more receptive to falling for that trap because we will
Mm.
never have enough clothes or enough tech gadgets or have enough of something to fulfill us. It's kind of a
Yeah.
decision you make internally and something that has to be done from the inside out. And so what I think part of that journey for him probably was like most of us, how can I be fulfilled from the inside out, not the outside in? And when it comes to, fitting in and being around a different crowd, you'll do what they do
Yeah.
because you don't feel validated enough on the inside yourself. Well, then I'll be validated by these people or by doing these things. I also know since he was in the engineering world and like the sales role, um, for people who are in that culture, it's a lot of like schmoozing clients with booze and going out to fancy clubs and doing these big giant fundraisers, which are just, glorified parties
Yeah.
and outrageous things happening. So he was in those environments too.
Do you know what's funny is that's I spent 10 years in the tech world. I was sober when I did it, but it was challenging to, I mean, it wasn't really challenging, but that's what I saw. So if he was a sales engineer, then he would be paired up with somebody like me because I was like the salesperson. But I always needed a smart person who can speak geek, you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's kind of how, and so he would have been like somebody that was my counterpart, and we would go out to these dinners and entertain guests and sales conferences and things like that. And that is a heavy drinking culture.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen people crash and burn, to say
Yeah.
the least, in that
Oh,
environment. So I could see how he would be susceptible to that for sure.
yeah. Yeah. There was definitely that frame of mind looking from the outside in because we spent, I look forward to spending time with him, but it was so infrequent
Yeah,
that it was just so sad to hear because I'm like, but I was just with Uncle Whit. Like I was just there. We had so
yeah,
much fun together. I love him. He's so successful. He's such a role model. How can this stuff be true about addiction? And I think it frames our mindset and our stigma of addiction today is like, oh, right, addiction is not for me. I'm not in danger. It's not my family.
right,
And students today have that too. I'm like, no, I can't be addicted. Like
right.
I'm powerful. I'm resilient.
Yeah.
I'm flawless,
Yeah,
right?
kids do
Even
have
though
a little bit of a invincibility a
that's
factor there.
maybe that's the word right there. They feel invincible and
Yeah.
that's a great feeling to have, but it's pretty
So
dangerous.
delusional. And so what happened to your uncle?
Mhm. Yeah, so he passed away. And the timing, I had started my movement um, right before he passed away.
Oh, you started it before.
Yeah. And that was actually a very sweet moment before he left, was like he was very proud of me. And I
Mm.
remember going to the hospital to visit him and being in the town, and he said, Jake, you know, the thing you're doing is really important. It could have changed my life. And
Whoa.
that was a big moment to, to look back and realize the importance of what I'm doing. And so
Yeah.
when it gets difficult running a movement like this and it's
Hmm.
countercultural, it's like
Yeah.
remembering, no, this is for him and this is for all the people who have lost loved ones. And if we want to change our culture, we've got to challenge it. And that hurts.
Yeah. So you had an opportunity to say goodbye to him.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And what was the impact that you saw? So you'd already started the movement. So were you compelled because you saw how it affected like your mom and your dad?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to see anyone go through that hurt. And it was watching my grandparents seeing
Whoa.
their son gone too soon.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was in his early 40s, and that was something that just hit me is I won't know that feeling. I don't want to know that feeling of how it would be to lose your son or daughter to addiction and all the things that must be swimming in their mind because of that. And we know it's not their fault, but I can imagine being so close. That would be that's something you'd have to fight. You'd be going over it all over. What if I did this? What if I did this?
Oh, yeah,
And
for
it's such an
sure.
inner turmoil when you lose someone too early. Um,
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to. I want to be a part of a movement that reduces that experience for people. They don't have to go through that. And I think that the work that I'm doing now is it's so preventative
Yeah.
that my work oftentimes, luckily for me, I don't have to live that experience over and over and over again because I'm in the
Right.
prevention side. But it's
Right.
like, what seeds can we plant right now so that when students are faced with that decision for the first time, they're equipped with the resilience, the mindset, the future, like the things that can say, oh, yeah, that's not the path I want to go in because I
Yeah.
want to live in this different world, you know, that we want to create together.
No, that's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the actual work you do. I think prevention, it's hard when somebody is already in it to get them out. So it makes sense that we start focusing our time and energy on the prevention. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do and how you do it.
Sure. Yeah. So our goal at Vibe 18, like I said before, is to help students make friends, have fun, and feel good without using mind-altering substances.
Yeah.
And it's because if you think about drug prevention in the past, right, the DARE program, the scare tactics, the car crashes, is that students, we're laughing and students are laughing. It's, but like more importantly, the science shows that that doesn't work.
It
Because if
doesn't.
you can remember, as a young person, you felt invincible. So all
Right.
these scare tactics are you're like, oh my, wow, what level did you stoop to put this in front of me to try to scare me out of making a decision? On top of that,
Right.
I desperately want to become an adult, right? Young people want to be older, old people want to be younger. So it's like this catch 22. We're using these old folk tactics because that's what resonates with us. We're led by fear and insurance mentality. Our
Yeah.
kids are not.
They
They,
do not care. Oh my gosh. You know
no.
what's so funny is I remember being in high school and they showed us these pictures of this guy that was drunk driving and he kind of fell asleep at the wheel and he veered off the side of the road into an irrigation piping, like metal piping, and it went up through his car, through his head, and out the back window. And he was like suspended, like still alive for a while. And they showed us all, and they were trying to scare us. And I'll tell you what, it did scare me for a minute.
Yeah.
And then the girls were like, "Hey, we're gonna drink and we're gonna go to this party, and there's gonna be boys there." And I was like, "Hot damn, count me in." Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
it did scare me, but it didn't stop me from going hog wild, let's just say.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's because it didn't solve any problem for you. So if you
no,
think about it from like a general standpoint of a student, is yes, you were scared. But you might have had the thought of, well, I mean, the odds of that happening are astronomical. On top of
Right.
that, it doesn't solve my problem of I want to hang out with my girlfriends. I want to meet a guy. I want to go party on the weekends. So you've scared me, but you haven't shown me how I can get all the things I want to
There it
without
is.
using this. S-
Oh my
s-
God.
This is what I see as like the missing piece in our prevention landscape today is we haven't solved the problem of social. Like,
It seems so obvious now that you say that. It seems so obvious. And that's, I think maybe that's why it's, the work that you're doing is catching on like wildfire
yeah,
because it's an underserved market and this market doesn't have any solutions. So
yes, yes.
my,
Well,
my my head's on fire right now. I totally see how solving the fun problem. Kids want to have fun and hormones are raging. Like they want to I think hooking up means something different to me than it might the young kids. I don't know what it means to them, but I wanted to meet boys and boys wanted to
yeah,
meet
yeah. Well,
I understand that
exactly.
there's more options and configurations to that story, but do you know what I mean?
Oh, I do. And I think the
They wanted the love connection.
yeah, well, I mean, if you bring it down, right, is we're all looking for that acceptance and belonging.
Oh,
We want to feel loved, and like that's the most exciting part about being a student and young is like, I talked to her today. Oh my gosh, I talked to her. Like we said like two sentences, and my heart is pounding. Like that will last you a whole week of like endorphins and feeling amazing.
yeah, the love drug. That's my favorite drug. Oh
Yeah.
my
So
gosh. So you're okay, so let's tell me about how do we do this? Like, so I know you do sober house parties and all this stuff. So where do you start in your process?
yeah, so mostly it starts off with a speaking engagement. So going into a school, and this can be anywhere from middle school all the way through college.
They should start in middle school for sure.
Yeah, I'm even this year,
No elementary schools yet?
actually they've started requesting us in elementary schools, but it's not the same presentation. It's
Right,
just
right, right.
instilling that mindset of protect your mind, protect your body, because that's your tool to build your future.
Ooh,
So
that's so good.
yeah, and it's all about building resilience. So there's these different protective factors, they call them in the field, which is when you're faced with a choice or a decision to do something destructive, what are the protective factors you have in place to help you keep making a strong, better decision instead of going down that path? And so we want to build up these protective factors in young people so that they are resilient, they can resist peer pressure, they have a focus on their future and what they want, they believe they can get it. Because here's the true reality of everything we try to do. If a student doesn't believe that they can have a great future, there's no reason for them to not use drugs. They should, in their mind, well, I'm not going to have a good future anyway. So why would I just not take a quick high to feel good right now? So building,
Why don't they feel like they believe like
well,
I'm
this
sure.
this could be this could be for any sort of reasons, but when you think about a young person and developing them,
Mhm,
is you want to build them up so that they are resistance, and that's one of the
mhm,
like mindsets you have to fight. Because you think about if you're a kid today, you live in a different landscape than both you and I grew up with.
mhm.
Is if there was a bully at school when I left school, I didn't have to deal with the bully. Now, every time you look at that device that you spend hours a day on, that bully's right there. They're
Oh,
commenting, they can text you, they can just post something and you could feel left out because you just know everybody else is doing something that you're not. So there's all these reasons why students would maybe feel like they're not enough or that their future doesn't matter because your hormones are going crazy, you're growing, developing, relationships are starting to bud, you're learning that. And so there's all these things that could be happening on one end. So us as parents and caring adults, we get to develop the other side of that, which is these strong, hopeful, resilient kids that believe the best in themselves so that when it comes to this moment, when they're faced with a
mm,
decision, which now we're seeing as early as like second and third grade,
uh-huh.
students are finding like THC and vaping products. Um, you know, schools, I've talked with principals who are like, yeah, I've got a drawer full of vaping products
In elementary school.
in elementary school. So like
Yeah.
having these mindsets develop them early is why we're also doing elementary. But your initial
I think
question was,
elementary. I think elementary would be so important because that's,
Yeah.
these kids have older siblings.
Yes, exactly. And so that's why helping, like doing some sort of education through
Mhm.
speaking and a third party. So we come in and we're, fun, relatable. We incorporate music and drumming and different hobbies that they're into. So it gets them hooked in the message. It's not this doom and gloom, scary message. Um,
Doesn't work.
yeah, it's very fun. It's very energetic and positive. And more importantly, we give them a chance to take action. It's not
Okay.
the don't do drugs message. It's, hey, have a life, a full life, go for your future and protect that future with good decisions. So we're giving you something to do.
Okay.
If what you love is this, cool, we're going to help you be the best at that. So you're not even tempted to use these substances that could take away your dreams. So it starts with the education. We can invite them to form a student club where they can also get those connections, belonging, fun. That's really important. And then those clubs can host their own events. So this is where the drug-free events and parties and stuff like that have taken place. And that's been just so fun to see, like training college students to throw sober house parties and at the same time training middle schoolers to throw like what did they do? They did it was called an Aloha party because it was a Hawaiian glow party. So they called it
Aloha. Oh
Aloha.
my God, that is so cute. Tell me, what does that
Yeah.
party look like?
Oh, there was like 100 middle schoolers showed up to this campground that donated their space, and they played capture the flag. They had glow sticks. They had root beer floats. Um, it was awesome. They flew us out there to see the party. So we did the speaking. We trained the group. This was the best part. They did a Shark Tank competition to pitch their best event idea. Agloha won. They went out to the community. We taught them how to get sponsorships. So they went and sponsored, like, got $700 worth of sponsorships to buy decorations and food and games. And the students flooded in, had a great time. They had all these different competitions they played. They had a dance party with music, played capture the flag. And students, like just being around each other in a new environment, they're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool. We have a amazing video of these students,
Oh my
these
God.
middle school students talking about how awesome it is to promote sobriety, in their community and how they felt supported by local people to do this and how they want to do it again and again. So it's pretty powerful stuff, but it's all about creating opportunities for them to take action, not just telling them what not to do, but okay, if I'm not doing that, then how can I still make friends, have fun, and feel good? Well, now we have community, now we have education, and we're building resilience.
That's brilliant. And I've been listening to all these podcasts. They talking about how isolated everybody feels. Everybody feels so isolated and disconnected. And for a long time in the addiction recovery space, we talk about how if if alcoholism is a disease of isolation, then connection is the cure. But these days with the kids, everyone is like in their room on their phones, on their game consoles or whatever. I, speaking from my own experience, I had two boys that were not necessarily into sports and didn't really fall into like the normal categories that a lot of kids fall into. They didn't do like drama or because it's either at school it's like the drama kids and then the sports kids, but what about all the other kids who don't really have a place, right? And then take into account that a lot of family, like the people don't a lot of people don't go to church anymore. Like when I was growing up, everybody kind of went, and then in my generation and maybe even before that, people stopped. So it's like we don't really have community like we used to. So we need to find a place where people and a way, because it's like my kids are just seem so isolated. And I think about a neighbor lady of mine. I only saw her kids when they were walking home from school or to school. They were like kids are just never outside. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, there was a picture I saw, and it was just like bicycles all over the front yard. And
Yeah.
it reminded me of, like, yeah, we did that. Like we were
Did
at
you
the
do
park,
that?
going to houses, right? And you don't, like, I don't see that anymore. Like, where are the kids' bicycles littered across the lawn and at the park?
Yeah.
And it is tough. It's kind of we've built a comfort zone of doing everything so in our house and isolated a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the kids get a tough rap too because they want to do stuff online on their phones and the way they connect with each other is changing. And I want to say for better or for worse, but it's hard to say, like to give it the option and not see it as just something that seems negative. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like a tough battle. I do know that like some of friends that I know, that was their saving grace though, technology. Like having a
Mhm.
chat group of people because they had a hard time in school, but they
Mhm.
have this online community that loves and supports them. And even if it was just like they have this online group where they watch a movie together and they make jokes and they talk, but they
Yeah.
were together. They still
Yeah.
got that feeling of belonging. Or the video games where you're like, are you seriously playing video games again? But they're chatting with their friends and
Yeah.
they're connecting. And I'm sure using language that's great, not the one like they're supposed to be exposed to at this age. So there's like a lot of negatives, but I'm trying to find the silver lining, Eileen.
You're really struggling there. No,
I'm
I'll
trying
tell
to
you
find
what.
it.
You're trying to find it. No, it is sort of a blessing and a curse, and it is dependent on the way it's used. Like my younger son made friends online through video games, but and they're still friends. He's had this same group of friends for 10 solid years,
Wow.
maybe a little longer, the same core, and they've all gone through changes. They support each other. They've gone through, typical friend group stuff where they get mad at each other. And then there's always like the peacemaker, and then some people leave and some people come in, but it's been like this for 10 years. And it's just the new way they do things. And I think as a parent, we want to try, like, we're living in a different world now. Like, as a parent, I almost like encouraged it because I knew the kids were safe. I
Mhm.
felt like they were safe, but when we were talking about some of the problems and solutions, one of the problems that I'm in the addiction recovery space, and I didn't know that kids can now get drugs delivered to their house, like through Snapchat. And so my younger son had a period of, he's fine now, but he went through a period of time where he was experimenting, and I did, and he was getting drugs delivered to the mailbox. And here I am thinking my kids don't use drugs, they don't drink, they don't do anything, they're always in their room. Little did I know that he was basically, you know, doing stuff, and then like connecting with his friends online who are also, some of them were doing stuff too. So that
Yeah.
he went through that experimental phase, but I was shocked. I didn't know that that was a thing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of like challenges with platforms like Snapchat where the messages go away and you create new profiles and it's
Yeah.
target like students are on it so much. That's how they communicate now even.
Yeah.
I'll send texts to like our youth group kids at church, like, about plans and stuff and inviting them to basketball games, like stuff they're into. Like,
Yeah.
so I won't get a response from a text. And then Snapchat is like, boom, they're there. It's
Wow. They
it's
don't
it's a totally
respond to
different way.
text.
No, it goes on red. They have a bunch of them. It's like is it's I'm
That's
an
so
old person
crazy.
to them. Like that's old people stuff,
Can I
Jake.
ask you how old you are?
I'm 32.
Oh my gosh, you look like a baby. I mean, 32 is kind of, but yeah, you're the old guy to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, how
That's
funny.
that's the thing is, I mean, specifically because I think if there's parents listening here, there's this idea though that because you're a parent, you can't connect with your student. And
Mm.
that I think is just it's unhelpful self-talk because the truth is your kids desperately want your approval,
Oh,
desperately.
really?
And
Still?
still, even if they act like they don't care about
They
anything,
do act like they don't care. They do act like
no,
that. They act like
no,
they don't
no.
care.
So here's the difference too, is what we found through the science of drug prevention is that if you survey the students who choose not to use drugs,
Mhm.
is one of the top reasons why they say that is because they don't want to let their parents down. And if you
Mhm.
break that down, it says number one, they do care about what we think. Number two, it does say they want to make us proud, and that the boundaries that we set up with our students, like the guidelines and what we expect from them, and how much we believe in them that they can achieve great things, that's
Oh,
having a great effect on the decisions that they make. Now, could they still make a mistake? Absolutely. Because there's the other side of the spectrum of what are the reasons why students do use?
right.
And one of the top factors for those is dealing with stress and mental health issues. So there is actually a really interesting study done. I believe it was by Columbia University, and they asked parents, how many parents, how many of you believe that your students would use a drug to deal with stress? And they believed that 7% said, oh, my student would. Now
They they would use
they
drugs.
believe that their kid would use to deal with stress.
Only 7%. Oh, we are
7%.
delusional.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We are
In
delusional.
reality, they then surveyed the students that did use and said, how many of you are using because of stress? And 70% said that was the top factor. And so there's this dichotomy of like, we don't matter. We're not helpful in influencing our students' decisions, but that's not correct. As adults, before they're using, everything that you do is one of the best things that you can do is learn how to protect that student from
Mm.
making harmful decisions and increase those what we would call protective factors. But just thinking about what you had told me too about your student, like you had no idea, right? Like he's using online
No, I
to
was
get something delivered.
clueless.
And I was speaking at the DEA's youth summit out in Vegas and a couple thousand students. And that was one of the things that they focused on was how dangerous these platforms are and what to look out for to know, like, are you talking to a safe person or not? Because it would make your stomach sink to know the stuff that's going around online and the secret codes and emojis that they use to represent different drugs and to signal youth to say, hey, drugs are awesome. It's going to fit the lifestyle that you want and to find a dealer really easily. And this is something I would never like share with a student or a kid. I don't want them to know how easy it is. I want them to think it's hard to get drugs. I want it
Okay.
to be harder to get drugs. Uh,
Yeah,
but I also know that's not going to be the thing that saves them from it. They'll
right.
have to make the decision for themselves at some point.
Yeah. So what techniques do you have to help students focus on their future? Because when you're young, all you care about is what's happening right now. And the kids, I understand, are under so much stress, so much pressure. They're really the first generation to grow up only knowing social media, right? And I hear about some of the things that especially, I hear a lot of stuff about the girls, what the girls are dealing with. Like I've seen all these little videos of, Am I Pretty? Like
Mhm.
they're doing these little things like I really want to know, like, because that is what they're taught to think is like that's where their value is. And so all they care about is like seeking approval and belonging. And I mean the kids are under so much, there's all this comparison, like you were saying, the being left out of stuff and the bullying and just some, like, I didn't raise girls, thank God, because some of the stories that I've heard, it's just it's really intense. So
Yeah.
what are some of the solutions for all that?
Yeah, well, you kind of opened it up perfectly. Is this the students aren't necessarily focused on the future because their frontal lobe isn't fully developed to start focusing on that stuff anyway.
Right.
So all the advice, we could talk about that forever, right? And
They
it,
don't care
it
about
might
the
be a waste
future.
of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question is, oh, I care about being pretty. I care about being popular, how I'm seen. Am I
Yeah.
fitting in?
Yeah.
And so those are the questions that we have to answer is, well, how does drug use relate to your physical health? Does it mess your skin up, your teeth up, like stuff like that? Oh, absolutely. So
Yeah.
if those are the things that they care about, those are the things that you can help them research and helping a student discover something is so much more impactful than telling them something. See, if I know that someone is really, really into their looks, today's students want to be influencers, right? They see all these self-made millionaires online doing channels and streaming and social
Yeah.
media influencing. They're like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you value your image. Great. Let's look at what this does to your image. Let's study it. Put them on a little project to say, what happened to this person when they started using drugs? Or what does this do to your image? How do people perceive you?
Mm,
And look at it from those lens. And I think the bigger thing too is to ask them, don't just think about your close friends and your group that you have right now that makes you think this is normal. Look beyond that group, because what your group of friends thinks is normal, another group of friends could think that's not.
right.
And here's just something like hopeful to share with everybody is
I keep bringing you down. Share, tell me what the hopeful stuff is.
well, a good thing to share is that statistically, over half the students in our country don't use any type of drug.
Half.
More than half. Yeah,
More than
exactly.
half.
When you
Wow.
look at the different studies that are done, one is called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and it's done in states all across the country. And they're showing that the majority of students are not using any types of drugs. But what gets headlines and media and attention is the negative. It makes
Right.
us feel fear and stuff like that. So it sells. But
Yeah.
the true story, and the students buy into it, right? Because they're like, yeah, someone's always smoking in the bathroom.
Hmm.
It could be the same three students smoking in the bathroom every time you go because they're addicted. Of course, they're taking
Right.
every break to go in there and do that. And so you think everyone in school is using when it's the same group. Maybe it's your group of friends,
Yeah.
but in reality, it's not everyone. And I think that's what's so important when I started throwing these, giant sober house parties at my college and getting hundreds of students and getting sponsored by Pizza Hut and Red Bull and Subway. It was like, sure, you could tell me that I could have fun without drugs or that other people, are making good decisions, but I won't believe you. But now you go to a party and you see it and you're like, okay, awesome. That actually was really fun. That was hype. I loved it. And I met like 100 new friends that we had fun without it. So there is that kind of thing turning social norms to social proof that we have to
Mm.
prove this to students as well. And if you're a parent, sometimes that means modeling it. Like, how goofy can you be in front of your kids? Or like, how fun can you model that, like, you don't need this? What do you do when you get angry or stressed? Are you modeling, oh man, I need a drink? Or, oh man, I just need to get high. Like, a lot of adults do that. And so, of course, students are developing the behaviors to check into those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been sober a long time, so my kids never saw me drink, but it is so common that people are turning to alcohol, for stress relief, which is crazy because I was just listening to the Huberman Lab podcast a little while ago. He's a neuroscientist out of Stanford, and he was talking about how when you consume alcohol, it actually, triggers your endocrine system and it raises your baseline for cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And
Wow.
so it raises your baseline when you're not drinking. So it then, so it's, this is how the addiction begins, right? Is that you feel stress, you drink alcohol, you feel temporarily not stressed, but then when you're not drinking, your cortisol level rises, and so you become more sensitive to stress. So that's what starts the vicious cycle, and that's what that's what a lot of people are modeling to their kids.
Yep. And that's
Yeah,
why vaping among youth really, really took off too, because
yeah.
they they said it was helping. And then what happens in between each
Mm,
use, like you said, well, now you're stressed even more. So you go to use quicker and quicker and quicker.
yeah.
And it starts that off.
Yeah, the vaping I found really the vaping and the THC use I found very challenging because you don't smell it anymore. Like if, back in the day, if we were sneaking cigarettes in the bathroom or behind the house or whatever we did, you could smell it. Weed, you could smell it. But now with the gummies and the vaping, especially the vaping, it's all fruity,
Yeah.
right? So it's like it's marketed to kids, and so you can't smell it.
Right. And there's all sorts of concealment devices
Yeah.
that they can hide that stuff in, which is another thing about the industry. Like, oh, to say you're not targeting kids, but somehow you need to hide this, that's absolutely marketed to kids,
Oh, good
along with the
point.
flavors. So I know Juul got sued for,
Uh,
I don't know, 40 million or 400 million, something huge.
yeah.
Um,
I hope it's 400 because, oh my
right.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's absolutely like it makes it harder to see
Yeah.
if your student might be using. So you kind of have to look at the behaviors rather than the signs. But there is a video people can look up. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight, and it's on YouTube. But you can basically see like a in a teenager's room all the places that could be hidden. So if like you are going through, you know, your room, their room and cleaning up and stuff, and you see something, you're like, hey, that water bottle has been there for like 3 weeks. It's weird that it hasn't been taken away. It could just be a dirty teenager's room, but it also could be a concealment device. Um,
Oh,
because
wow.
there's ridiculous stuff that highlighters, bottles, backpacks, um, like those funny neon lamps and stuff,
Hmm.
like a lot of stuff that they design so that they can hide it.
So as parents, we really need to be aware of, what the kids are doing now to conceal this stuff.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think taking a look at what things they're interested in and how it's changing. Because a lot of the behaviors that
Mm,
change, right? You're changing a group of friends. You're now
yeah.
into this substance, so you're less interested in that sport or that music that you were.
Right.
Looking at what
Change
stuff
in
you're drawing.
interest.
Yeah, which could be this. The funny thing is, it could just be you're growing up and you're changing. We try on all these different hats, you know, to find our identity. And so it could be
That's
that, but
true.
it also could be substance use. So looking for drawings too, and like what they wear, because they'll be doodling, you know, like cannabis or marijuana leaves. Then you're like, okay, there's one reason why you'd be doing that. You're into this, you know? Um,
When my nephew started putting up posters of Bob Marley and putting incense in his room, I was like, homeboy is smoking some weed.
right? Yeah, look out. Exactly. I've had
Yeah.
some parents that I was like super proud of. I was like, at first I was like, whoa, that's intense. And then I was proud of it. They're like, oh yeah, we drug test our kids, you know, every 2 months. And I was like, wait, you what? They're like, yeah, we want to give them number one, a way out if they're ever in trouble and they need
Okay.
to like ask, why
Yeah.
aren't you doing this? Oh, my parents, they're insane. They drug test me.
Yeah.
So what a good
Oh,
excuse to not do it if you're at a party. But two, like to tell them, hey, I love you so much. I would never put your life at risk for doing this. I'm going to make it so hard on you if you ever want to try this because I've seen how it destroys lives.
yeah.
Like that's tough, but that's caring.
That
Um,
really
I
is.
had to
Yeah.
really, yeah, I really congratulate them. And she's a nurse too, so she sees it all the time.
Oh
And
gosh. Yeah.
even then, she had two of her kids that started using, and they had to go through the hard work of recovery at a young
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
So,
How do you feel? I
uh,
mean, do kids come and tell you that they are experimenting? Because I feel like experimenting is almost an inevitable part of, coming of age, especially when you get to the college years. Like I can't tell you how many people I've talked to on this podcast where they were good up until college and then they went buck wild, you
mhm,
know?
yeah. So I think it's a normal behavior to test things, right? If you think
Mhm.
about your kid, their job is to test you at every boundary you set up. So it
Yes.
would make sense that when they leave the house and they become independent or whenever they feel independent,
Mhm.
they're going to test those boundaries.
Okay.
And so the reality is not every student is going to want to test those boundaries if they've solidified that this is something that cannot help their future and that their goals and what they get from not using a substance is far greater than what they could get from using it.
Right.
So I would be a prime example. Like I saw it. My parents solidified that I could do great things. They believed in it. And so when it came
Mm.
time to make that choice, like I tried drinking twice. It gave me a good feeling, and I decided I don't want to do that because I want to earn my good feelings. I don't want to get it from a substance. I want to get it from
Mhm.
making friends and making other people feel good and volunteering and building a movement. Like
Mhm.
those are like some of my goals. So there was like this mindset shift. And I find a lot of students who they go through that tempting period, right? Of everyone else is doing
Yeah.
it, but they
Yeah.
found an alternative peer group. They found a group of friends that doesn't use it, so they don't feel left out. They have
Right.
an adult who cares about them. They can ask questions and be like, how did you deal with this? Whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And they have this confidence and resilience to say, I don't
Mhm.
need to please anybody else because I have
Yeah.
confidence in myself.
Wow, that's
And
huge.
yeah, so I think that's the thing. It's not inevitable that students will test and
It's not
experiment.
inevitable.
But I actually, so this just happened. I was out in rural Kansas speaking to some schools. A student came up afterwards and he had this look like he was going to disprove everything that I just presented. And I was like, all right, here we go. This is great. He starts sharing this data with me and how marijuana is helpful and like that. And he
Love
uses
those stuff.
it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
he doesn't have a problem using it, but he uses it.
Of course.
Um, his family has a history of addiction, but
Mm.
he's good. And so I, nicely challenged him on everything. I even challenged where he's getting his data. Like, hey,
Okay.
you realize that people selling this publish data and they hire researchers to publish information that puts them in a good light.
Yeah.
But why don't you look at universities and hospitals? Their job is to save lives. What does their studies say? So I
Right.
challenged him on it. I said, that's where my information came from. And he told me, he's like, I looked it up because I didn't believe you. And then I saw it was true. And I was like, dang, maybe this guy has something. So we keep in touch. He's DMing me on Instagram. Like we leave on these friendly terms, but we disagree.
Oh,
And
still. Yeah.
yeah, still. And what it came
Mm.
down to him, like the reason why I basically was like, hey, what would have to happen to you or one of your friends for you to stop smoking weed? What would that be?
Yeah.
Just define it. Um, and he's like, you know what? If it cost me like an opportunity that I couldn't pursue because I smoked weed, that would be it.
Wow.
Like I think that would be, I could see a direct consequence right now. And so I'm thinking, I'm impressed by this kid. Like he is in high
Yeah.
school. He's a young kid and he's got like this self-awareness.
Mm.
And about almost a month goes by. He's DMing me, like I post something. He's like, dude, that looks fun. Like my friends and I are gonna go thrifting this weekend, or like do this slip and slide thing you posted about. It's like, dude, that's awesome, man. Have a safe time. It's awesome. I send him a message a little bit later saying, hey, I don't know if this interests you, but here's an opportunity that might you won't be able to do if you if you smoke weed.
Yeah.
But there's opportunities to travel, to be a part of this club, and to meet people from across the state.
Wow.
And I loved his response. He's like, I feel like it would be out of integrity for me to do that because I'm still smoking
Wow.
weed. Yeah. And so I was like, hey, man, appreciate the honesty.
Mhm.
Be safe. I think that you're incredible. So I
Yeah.
always want to just emphasize
Leave the
like you
door
as a
open.
person are not your behaviors. You're incredible. Wishing you the best. He texts back probably a week later with a DM saying, I found it. I'm done. He's like, he realized that his his line he drew of why he was excusing his use was inconsistent because he was scolding his brother for his use because his
Oh,
brother is addicted. His brother has a
oh,
problem. But one of the things we
okay.
initially talked about, I was like, but you've drawn this invisible line in the sand saying that your use is okay because it doesn't cross this line, but you're scolding your brother for using because he's crossed another one. I was like, if you ask me, I think you crossed the line already.
Yeah.
So you can't like this is all subjective. There's
It's all
no measuring
subjective.
stick to this. And if your family has a history of an addiction, you could stop it right now. You could
Yes.
end this family line of addiction by your choices. And it took a while for him to come through it, but he had to go through his own mind, his own opportunities. And I don't often get to hear stories like that. I get the
Yeah.
students coming up afterwards saying like, "Oh man, you just helped me. Like I just quit vaping and I'm going to stick with it because everything you said was so spot on. And I want to get those things in my future and I can have fun now and I can be a leader instead of a follower to my friend groups." So that's the stuff that I get. But this was like a really special one. Like it was a tough one and it was a really cool story and a life change that I know is going to have ripples.
As no, that's so inspiring to hear. It's so hopeful, and it's so good to hear that that people actually just like we talk about planting seeds. A seed takes time. A
Mhm.
seed takes time, like you were watering it, you nurtured it, and when it was in the season, it sprouted, right? And
Yep.
so that's a whole metaphor behind planting seeds is that we need to, as parents and, adults and what did you call it? Caring allies or adults that,
Adults. Yep.
yeah, that we're planting seeds of encouragement. Just got to talk to our kids about how to have fun in other ways. And man, your website is so much fun. All the videos that you have, it's so high energy and oh my gosh, so much fun. Tell me a little bit. We talked before about leadership training because that when we talked about how kids can start their own clubs, they can start their own sober house parties. Tell me a little bit about how you foster leadership in these kids.
Yeah. The first one is really just building up a dream that they can have. Like if you imagine getting students behind a mission can be
Mission.
pretty tough right away. So in order to get them behind the mission, oftentimes find out what they're excited about. So I tell them about, my parties as a college student, and how I got these sponsors and hundreds of students. And they're like, whoa, this is crazy that you did that. I didn't realize that college students could party without drugs and alcohol, you know, from any age group. They're like, that's insane.
Yeah. Did you go to a Christian college?
No,
You just
uh,
went to, where would you go to school?
it's called Oshkosh, University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. Um,
Okay.
Small state school in Wisconsin, about 9,000 students. But I lived at my parents' house so I could pay my way through school and
Uh-huh.
ride my bike or skateboard to school and stuff. So that's why I picked it. And then
Yeah.
that's where I started the whole movement. And it was called Party Point O at first. Just thought if you blew into a breathalyzer, it would read point zero. So I was like, all right, Party Point Zero. That's what I'm gonna do. Um,
That's so funny. And you just kind of came up with this one day?
it was like it was a journey, but my complaint was like I want to find a way to make friends, have fun, and feel good without using drugs. And I was like, well, I can't wait around for someone else to create that. I have to create it. And I read this book. It's called Start Something That Matters by Blake Mykowski. He's the founder of Tom's Shoes.
Yeah.
The book is just riddled with him starting things and his experience of finding a problem and then just going for a solution. And I was like, he did it like 5 times. I can do it once. And so I was like, what would it take to solve my own problem based on my experience? And if there's other people that want it, they'll jump on board too. And so, long story short, the parties like exploded in popularity. People started messaging me from across the country saying like, "This is so cool. I want to do this at my school. I feel like I want to make good decisions, but there's so much pressure to do other stuff. You're making this really fun. How can I do it?" And so I did like a Shark Tank at my school. I won a bunch of money and I got to travel, take the program to different colleges. And that's when the younger audiences started reaching out to say, hey, we need this. There's a lot of temptation, there's a lot of peer pressure. Like everyone needs this. And that's how it began a movement. What is now Vive 18 is it's more than a company, it's a movement of
Yeah.
empowering young people to be the solution, and to save young lives from addiction before it starts. So
Brilliant.
yeah, I forgot the question. I'm all riled up. I'm all
I
excited.
forgot about it too, but we were talking about leadership training. So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it just makes sense that you were like, but it's just amazing that, because I think that for my boys too, I was like, you guys don't have like, just start something, but you did it.
Right. And there's a bunch of failures in there and everything, but I think what happened and what I teach in the training
Yeah.
is that yes, you have to be willing to fail, but more importantly, you just have to be willing to ask. Like the way I started
Man.
it, I went out with a notebook and a pen and a friend, and we just met hundreds of students and we invited them to a sober house party. Like that's
Wow.
a
Just like grassroots effort, just one-on-one.
Yes, but check this out. We found out that 90% of people said yes to us with that invitation, which was proving that people do want a place to belong and have fun. They don't want to sacrifice their friends and their future in order to
Uh-huh.
do it. They're looking for opportunities. So if you give
Yeah.
people the opportunity to belong and make friends with drugs and alcohol, they'll take it. If you
Yeah.
give them another opportunity, they'll try that too. And
Yeah.
so it was all about just creating it. And a lot of the training that we do is to build up their belief to get them to throw a small event to show they can do it. I can get sponsors, I can invite my friends, I can invite people I don't even know, and I can increase this sense of belonging and community so
Hmm.
that people know that they're valued. Like no matter what you do, what you wear, you matter. And
Yeah,
if you think about the best companies and movements, it's never really about the product. It's
never.
about the feeling. It's about the community.
Yes.
And that's something that I would sell all day long is like you belong, you matter, no strings attached. Like I'll go to the grave selling that.
You belong, you matter, no strings attached.
Mhm.
It's so brilliant. How do you build belief in somebody that young? Is it just by demonstration?
Yes. So the first it's the this is possible. So that's what the speech and the videos will do. It's like shows other students that do it, what they did with it. Second thing is to equip them to build a vision of their own and actually encourage them to go do it. And it doesn't matter if it succeeds or fails, they're going to learn from it.
Hmm.
Through the process, that builds their belief. So the number one thing that has
Wow.
to happen is they have to take action fast. If it doesn't happen fast, it's going to fizzle out. So this is something that's so important. So after the presentation, I'm like, hey, I'll have lunch with all your leaders who want to do this. We're going to
Yeah.
build up a plan, a vision. We're going to delegate the roles to what you're going to do, not me. If I do it, it's not sustainable. If
Right.
you do it, it's going to grow.
Yeah.
And so giving them the opportunities to do it. And I have video trainings and what I call a playbook, which
Hmm.
teaches them everything, like literally word by word, how to get a sponsor or how to invite people, all this fun stuff, how to choose the right games so that the environment is really fun.
Hmm.
And those, even like the awkward people are making friends and making connections.
There it
And
is.
so, right, because to be honest, like that's me and a bunch of others is like,
I feel
I
like
mean,
every all like that is the new identifier is I'm awkward. Like
yeah,
they all it's like that could be the name of the club, the awkward club, because do you know what I mean? Like they all identify as awkward. And so where is all this training? Is that on the Vibe website?
So
518.
usually it comes through the schools.
Okay.
So what will happen is like a student's not going on my website, but maybe a parent hears about us, they bring it to
Yeah.
their PTA or their principal, school counselor, or maybe a drug prevention coalition, which are these community groups
Hmm.
that do work in addiction and recovery and prevention. And so they'll bring us into the community, and they'll take care of everything so that we can do the speaking engagements, we can do a training with the students, help them form a group and a vision, and then
Hmm.
assign an advisor
Hmm.
from the community, and then they go ahead and they make it happen. And I'm a resource on the back end. I'm always like, hey, FaceTime me. If y'all are in a meeting, just FaceTime me on my phone, and I would love to just like be your cheerleader, answer a question.
Yeah.
Because I love seeing them take action on this. So that's kind of how it starts. And then once they do an event, the cool thing too is like not only are they building community, but they'll go to like legislators and talk about policy. These students who get involved in this are getting to go fly across the country because there's conferences about this. It's like a really big movement to be a part of this thing, and
Wow.
we're lucky to be a part of it as like the fun people.
You are the fun people. Oh my gosh. That makes so much. I mean, in recovery rooms, they talk about attraction, not promotion, right? And you are definitely on the attraction end, right? It's like have fun now, build a vision, start a movement. I mean, kids are searching for purpose and meaning and belonging, all the things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's let go of the scare tactics and start with the have fun now,
Yes.
belong. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you were going to tell me three tips. You were going to give me three
Yes.
tips for something, and I almost forgot to ask you about that. What are the three tips, and
Yes.
who are they for?
Yeah, so anybody who's listening that is a parent or a caregiver for a young student, right? Preteen, teenager, even younger. I have three things that I like to say they'll help you build a resilient kid. And that's what we want. Like when you talk about a
Yeah.
drug-free kid, that's a resilient kid who believes in themselves and has a reason to say no because they're saying yes to a better future. So the
Mm,
first thing is to delay use. Delay use. Second one is to do you. I'll explain that. And the third one is to care, don't catch. So delay use, do you, and care, don't catch. The first one is about delaying the age in which they would start using that substance. Push it back as long as possible. And this is because your brain isn't fully developed until you're 21 to 25 years old. The
Mhm.
last part to develop is that frontal lobe, which is long-term decision making, risk, evaluating and problem solving, but also your identity. So
Mm.
if alcohol gets in your brain, it is stunting the growth of all of those things. And that's why we're seeing addiction rates that are higher for
Mhm.
students who start using earlier. So if you want to addiction proof your kid, your family, it's delay that use as long as possible
Mhm.
and be their frontal lobe. Your job is
Mhm.
to assess risk. Your job is to
Yes.
set up boundaries and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Their job is to respect the rules that you set down and to understand that you care about them enough that you would do that for them.
Okay.
And the thing that I say when I do parent presentations, like when we do schools presentations, sometimes we'll do a parent presentation or send videos so they can just publish it and send it to the parents.
Mm.
Is sometimes you can think, well, I want to let them learn to drink in a safe environment so that they don't go crazy and experiment when they're in college.
Right. Yeah.
Backfires because now we're showing approval for a behavior that we should be showing we don't want you to start doing that because it puts you at great risk for addiction.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not a great move. It shows approval for it. And what do you think the kid's going to do when you're like, are they going to go to a party and be like, no, I can't drink here because my mom's not here? No, they're going to say, oh, yeah, this is fine. I do this all the time. In fact, I drink with my parents, or they know I do it. Of course, it's going to perpetuate and lead to other things. So that's like a big myth that people believe that we need to just like take care of. Um,
Okay.
and y'all might have heard people say that in the community too. So the next one is to do you. And this one, I just have to say, like, parents out there, caregivers, you are one of the top prevention strategies because once again, the students who choose not to use say it. That's their reason. They don't want to let you down. They want your approval. They want to achieve the things that you set out for them, even if they put up that front and they're fighting you and it seems like they
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Their job is to push back. That's what kids and teens do.
Yeah.
They're looking for those boundaries. So, like sticking into whatever your behavior style, your parenting style, like what you learn, stick with it even when it's tough because you are a protective factor.
Okay.
And I like to just say this quick phrase, if you can remember from Do You, it's good behavior is caught, not taught. Good behavior is caught, it's not taught. So when you are modeling a healthy way to relieve stress, like you're having a stressful day, turn that into a lesson. Say, hey, kids, I'm super mad right now, or I'm mad at you. I told you to do this thing. You're not doing it. Instead of getting mad, I'm going to go for a run. And then when I get back, let's talk about it. You're modeling good stress behavior, different things, and even how you celebrate, all that stuff. So they're looking at you. They're listening to you less, but they're modeling you more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and the last,
That whole do as I say, not as I do. I never bought it either.
that does not work.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
The last one is care, don't catch. So if you think about like we want to catch our students using drugs so we can discipline them and get them to stop, like that never changed anybody, right? The
Cat's out
discipline,
of the bag.
right? And our even our criminal justice system is moving to more restorative things. It's like how can we educate and change behavior, not how can we punish to change behavior?
Right.
Because punishing doesn't help you overcome that obstacle that got you there in the first place. So um, this the posture to have is like, can I be a parent who sets clear boundaries, but who also shows my students that I care? That's why I'm doing it. Enough that when they have a difficult situation, they still feel comfortable coming to me.
Right.
My dad would do this by saying like, "Hey Jake, it's the weekend. Make awesome choices. Um, no, if you get caught at a party, you're going to be grounded for sure, but it's better than getting a friend in trouble or like a life that might be in stake. So if you are in a situation where you need help, call me first. It's
Yeah.
worth it. It's worth the grounding."
Yeah.
And it kind of showed me like, okay, he cares. That's why he's setting up these guidelines.
Mhm.
And so you can do that too. I told you about the mom that drug tests her kids.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna talk.
like that's amazing. But
Yeah.
it's out of caring, not to catch them. And your students, they need that structure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think, well, I don't want to be the uncool parent. It's like that's your job isn't to be cool, it's to be a parent and to save their life. So setting up the boundaries is actually something they like. That's one less decision they have to make.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
one less question. So set it up, make it easier, give them an out.
Yeah.
If if they're in a situation, they need an out, be like, you can tell them, like, what I will do if you get caught with this.
Yeah.
Use me as an excuse. We can have a
Right.
secret code if you're at a party and you text this phrase that I know to come get you or whatever it is,
Right.
and set these things up.
Yeah.
Um,
That engenders a lot of trust too.
yeah, exactly. I do have like a little document with notes and some strategies and explanations. If anybody wants an extended version of that, just text me or send me an email, jake@vive18.com, and I can send that to you.
Awesome. I was gonna say, yeah, there was gonna be people chomping at the bit to get this information because this is like new to me. Like, and it makes so much sense, right? It's like deal with the kid, like give them the solutions of what to do instead. Like they want to have fun, they want to connect, they want to belong. Teach them how to do it in a positive way. It's so obvious. Like I don't know why we haven't been doing this before. Like the scare tactics don't work. It's scary. Yeah, I mean it worked. It scared me for a minute, but then I got over it real quick because I wanted to go have fun.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is brilliant. So vive18.com, that is like the best resource for people if they're curious about having you come to their schools to deliver the talk and to teach the kids, all these leadership skills and all these alternative ways to have fun. Is that right?
Yes, that's perfect. The website is awesome. And Vive 18, we're on Instagram. I do a lot on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
Facebook.
because that's what I thought all the old people are at.
Exactly. I know. I was like, we have a TikTok, but that's for the kids. You can use it if you want, but that's where it
Oh,
puts
I'm on
them.
TikTok now too. It's so addicting.
That's that's why I don't use it. I'm like, I waste so much time there.
Yeah. Well, it's so
Instagram's
funny
too
because
awesome.
it's one of those things that it's just like any other algorithm that like I learned how to make like I'm a crafty girl, so I learned how to make soap on it. And so now I have 10,000 followers, right, teaching people how to make soap.
Whoa, what?
Funny. Yeah. So
Incredible.
it could be it's a tool. It's just like with social media and all that stuff. It's a tool that we can use positive or negatively. And so I love the fact that you're like, this is what's possible because I never even considered it. I didn't even know that that was possible. I feel like evidence is the new influencer, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, evidence is the new influencer, and you have a ton of evidence. The videos on your website are so much fun, and I'm so excited about the work that you're doing. This is so desperately needed. I was just thinking as we're talking, I'm like, I'm going to send this out to my neighborhood Facebook group. I'm going to send it out to all my, so yeah, so I will be promoting the heck
Yes,
out of this one.
please.
I'm
Thank you.
stoked for you.
Any school staff, please send them our website.
Yeah.
If it hits home with you, tell them why. Like this
Yeah.
needs to be in every community, and we're
Every
on our way.
community.
But this year, our goal is to reach 100,000 students. So you can help with that
Yeah.
if there's anybody
Yeah.
to share it with.
No, I feel like this is a move, but I mean, that might be a number that's too low. Because I mean, people in my audience, we care about our kids. We love our kids. Our kids are our whole lives. Like when you were talking about your grandparents and how they lost their son, that's every parent's worst nightmare.
Hmm.
Worst nightmare.
Yep.
It's nowadays there's so much to worry about from, kids getting snatched up on the street or trafficked or whatever to, that's why our kids are always at home. But now we need to teach our kids how to live. They need to live. They need to get out of the house. They need to go live.
Yeah.
So this is and have a good time and learn things. These leadership skills will carry them through their entire lives. I'm so excited about this work that you're doing.
Thank you, Arlena. And thank you for just everything you do with the podcast and with the show and the school because you're modeling how great life can be sober. And
Yeah.
that is that's prevention right there. You're modeling it and you're showing how great it is.
Yeah, I have a 50% success rate. Two kids. One of them is totally straight and narrow, and the other one is back on the path, let's say.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're doing
Yeah.
what's in your control, and
Yeah.
sometimes they have to figure it out.
Sometimes I have to figure it out. Yeah. Keep the lines of communication open. And you also have a podcast too called Party Talk. Is that right?
Yeah. Party Talk Podcast, empowering leaders in youth drug prevention.
Oh my God, so
Yeah.
great. Well,
Yeah.
listen, I will be following the work that you do. Please consider me a resource if I can help in any way. I will be shouting this from the rooftops to anyone who will listen about the amazing work that you and your team are doing to help our kids. They're our future. Let's protect them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That'll be awesome. And I'm going to send you a link, get you on my podcast.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. Well, thank you so much. I could talk to you all day, but I'll turn you loose. And so for those that are listening, I'll leave all the links to all the things in the show notes to your podcast, your website, and how people can get you in their schools. Thanks.
All right. Bye, Arlena. You're awesome.
Bye.